morning. I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
Welcome to Brunch Friday. And of course, since it's a Brunch Friday, we are joined by...
Budas Belly.
Budas Belly.
Kinakain natin kanina
Beef
pa bago
stew.
pa mag-start. Nabusog na nga ako bago pa nagsimula tayo.
I think this is beef curry or beef stew.
Sarap.
And then we have egg fried rice.
Chop suey.
We have chop suey.
Favorite ko tong egg fried rice nila. Sarap.
And of course, yung favorite ni Intel.
Buchi.
Buchi. All from Budas Belly. Okay, Marjorie. And of course, it's the aftermath or the day after the Traslasyon.
Oo.
Daming updates sa mga pangyayari. Medyo nagkagulo at some points of the procession.
Daming ang tawag dito, 'di ba, may mga naghaharangan, naghilahan doon sa mga pulis sa may Ayala Bridge.
Naputol yung lubid.
Naputol yung lubid sa may sa Finance Road and then sa may San Sebastian Church. So yun yung naging isa sa mga factors bakit bumagal. Kasi it took 20 hours and 45 minutes to be exact.
Yeah.
Yung the whole procession.
May updates pa tayo on that later on. In the meantime,
we're serving you news in a countdown. All that before your second cup of coffee. This is Brunch. Let's begin our countdown with the Traslasyon, the Andas return to the Minor Basilica and National Shrine of Jesus Nazareno after over 20 hours. The image of Jesus Nazareno arrived at the church at 1:26 a.m. earlier today. The Traslasyon or procession proper started at 4:41 a.m. on Thursday. That took longer than last year's 15 hours of procession. According to authorities, around 8 million devotees participated in Traslasyon. Red Cross, meanwhile, reported that over 500 individuals were injured as of last night.
Catholic devotees across the country had their own version of Traslasyon. In Ilagan, Isabela, the faithful held a procession for the replica of Jesus Nazareno. Their Traslasyon lasted for over 2 hours, stretching 8 kilometers. In Catarman, Northern Samar, rains did not stop devotees of Jesus Nazareno. This is because of the naging national feast
declaration
ng church na all dioceses across the country can celebrate already, and it's already accepted. It's already
before kasi
declared
talaga
officially.
Doon lang sa may Quiapo, Manila, pero ngayon all over our country.
But of course, a majority of the devotees, 8 million of them, flocked towards the Quiapo, Manila area. It's because that is the traditional holding place of the Traslasyon.
Grabe, sobrang dami. If you can see yung top shot natin, yung video dito sa One News sa Facebook, talagang napakadami.
Expected naman
Talagang yung sinasabi ni Professor Xiao Chua, yung indayog daw ng mga tao, yung talagang yung movement nila, di ba, doon sa procession, makikita mo, it's an art Ang ganda talaga makita. Pero grabe, yung areas kung saan nagkaroon ng tulakan, of course, kawawa naman yung ibang mga devotees na pumunta doon talaga para lang magdasal at sumama sa procession, pero nasama sila sa mga balyahan, sa stampede.
Actually, if you watch it sa YouTube, yung sinasabi ni Xiao, yung Indayap, yung ganon. It's a natural human instinct pala yan.
Yes.
For example, if your first day mo daw sa school, pagdating ng recess, first time mo nakita yung campus na school, sa first day mo sa campus mismo, pagdating ng recess, bakit alam mo daw kung saan ang canteen? Na hindi mo natatanong, wala ka nakikitang map. It's because, I guess, I just follow the others. Diba? Yan ang sagot ng marami. Parang ito, natural human instinct, kung ano yung movement ng majority, ng person right or left of you, nagka-follow ka lang. So yan ang sinasabi rin ng madaming experts ng crowd control experts, diba?
Tapos nakita ko din, kasi diba may mga, kanina nga sa report natin, 500 plus yung mga na-injure, kasama rin doon yung mga nahilo. And isa sa mga nakita ko sa report natin, yung mga frontliners, yung mga rescuers, merong nahilo na isa sa mga devotees. Tapos talagang kinakarga nila pataas sa crowd. And then you'll see, di ba, sobrang dami, sobrang siksik. Iisipin mo, paano dadaan to? Then you'll see them talagang gumagawa ng way yung mga devotees din. Biglang nagkakaroon ng maliit na espasyo habang lumalakad yung mga rescuers na karga-karga nila yung hinimatay.
Actually, sa bandang dulo na, wala na yung mga yung mga tawag mo doon, yung escort nila.
Yeah, yung Hijo del Nazareno.
Police na ang sumampa ng dulo to control it na kasi it was getting out of hand na. They tried the different approaches kasi this time, like pinagbawal nila na sumampa ng bridge pag dumadaan, papadaanin muna yung andas, or yung pag-alis niya, pag-depart niya from the grandstand towards Rojas Boulevard, bawal salubungin. They tried different things and different approaches to make it faster. But I guess if you're dealing with 8 million people...
Oo. Sabi nga nila, you can never really understand yung devotion nitong mga devotees na to until you experience, 'di ba, yung kanilang devotion nga dyan sa traslasyon. Ang isa sa mga highlights dyan, and of course, nung nakita ko rin to nung every time na makakapanood ako sa mga coverages, yung dungaw. 'Di ba? 15 minutes na dungaw ni nung Virgin Mary, 'di ba?
Yeah.
Nuestra del Carmen na shrine.
Dungaw ng nanay sa kanyang anak.
So parang it symbolizes yung maternal love na after all of the struggles na pinagdaanan ni Jesus, ay nandiyan yung nanay niya, sasalubungin siya. So it happened for around 15 minutes na habang papalapit yung Poong Nazareno, dudungaw si Virgin Mary, tapos sumisigaw yung mga tao ng Viva, 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 tapos maya-maya, Viva. Tapos biglang tatahimik. Biglang tumahimik kasi nagdasal. So, ang ganda. Very beautiful. Tapos, nakikita mo kanina, nabanggit ko rin to dun sa kabila, na yung parang lahat nung ginawa ng mga devotees dyan, yung every aspect, let's say, for example, yung mga lubid, tapos you'll see all of the towels na, wini-wave nila yung mga towels nila. Parang parang it's an act of surrender na ikaw na bahala, Jesus, sasamahan ka namin dito, pero pagdating sa problema namin, ikaw na bahala sa amin.
So ang daming you see the older generation, they're still engaged in a traslasyon. But nakakatuwa, yung mga younger ones, 19-year-old, 18-year-olds, you see them attending, but you ask them, alam lang nila yung devotion ng family nila sa traslasyon, kaya sila nandun. But if you ask them, ano ba ang history nitong Black Nazarene, the way it was called before? A lot of them don't know na nasunog siya, anong taon siya dumating sa Pilipinas, anong circumstances na bakit siya dumating sa Pilipinas, anong significance nito during the Spanish colonization period. A lot of them don't know its history. So sana naman also, if we're going to celebrate it, it's best once in a while you touch up on the history of the traslasyon itself, how did it start.
At saka, at the end of the day, hindi dapat dito nagtatapos yung devotion mo. After nito, dapat sinasabuhay mo every day yung di ba, yung hope, yung pag-asa.
Sa mga matatanda naman, alam naman nila yon that yung devotion nila, it does not stop on that day. It's just that it's an act of sacrifice. Di ba parang sacraments of sacrifice natin as Catholics to visit the poor, the sick, the hungry, the dying. Even going to prison to visit yung mga
act of mercy.
Act of mercy.
Yung sabi nila, for others, siguro yung pagdadasal ng taimtim is not enough. Kaya for them, itong such activity na tulad dito sa traslasyon is something that is, bigger for them, that something na mas may papakita nila yung pananalig nila kay Jesus.
Yes, pero, Mother Angela.
Pero hindi, lang. So at least natapos na rin, pero yung mga nakita ko rin mga basura doon, madami pa rin. Although may mga bagong panuntunan daw na maya't maya nangongolekta sila ng basura, pero you'll see also pa rin marami pa rin mga basura nagkalat doon.
You have 8 million people and ang assumption mo is 8 million people, kunyari may matitino dyan, kahit 1 bottle each lang na maiwan mo doon, that's 8 million bottles. So, madami-dami.
Dami-dami din yan. Pero ayun, at least as of now, sinasabi nila kahit papano, kahit may mga injuries, tapos may konting paggulo, may konting delay, 20 hours, 45, it's still a successful event for the devotees.
500 injuries ba?
Oo, 500 plus
but
injury.
500 plus, tas i-ratio out mo yan to 8 million people, that's less than 10%.
Meron ang kawawa na isang devotee na nadukutan pa siya. Na namantala yung mga mga tao.
Religious event, may mga kawatan pa rin.
Tapos yung iba naman, syempre kumita kasi mga nagtinda dyan, yung mga ambulant vendors. Kasi hindi ka makakaalis dun sa linya mo once na sumama ka dun sa procession, so hindi ka makakaalis dun. So they took advantage of that as well, yung iba mga nakapagtinda kahit sumasama sila sa procession. Alright, sige, let's move on. Moving on to our 9th spot, at least 160,000 devotees participated in the penitential walk with Jesus on Thursday. This marks the opening of the 460th Feast of Señor Santo Niño de Cebu. This year's festival theme is titled Santo Niño, Hope of the Pilgrim Church. Meanwhile, over 3,000 uniformed personnel have been deployed to ensure the security of Sinulog Festival activities. More than 3 million local and foreign tourists are expected to join the Sinulog Grand Parade on January 19. Authorities previously announced that there will be no signal jamming during the celebrations. O yan naman.
No signal jamming kasi ano yan eh. Ang gusto kasi ng Cebu is ma-promote na by content creators. Kasi ang daming content creators pumasok sa Manila from the US. Si Noel Go Crazy or Noel Crazy, something like that, he's in. So they want these touring vloggers or content creators na maka-experience din. Some of them will go live streaming eh. So gusto nila naka-live stream para ma-reach naman yung ibang parts ng mundo and to tell them about the beauty of yung mga festivals natin, parades. Kasi maganda
ma-experience yun. Just to make sure lang yung security doon intact. Kumbaga, mamomonitor talaga ng mga authorities natin doon. Kasi one of the reasons why may mga signal jamming is because of yung sa mga bombing incident.
Pero mag-double time na lang sila with bomb sniffing dogs, police personnel, 'di ba? Tapos kasi I think they're also going to broadcast, may mga streaming cam sila naka-set up around the area and magpapasada daw sila ng mga drones to take the shots.
Okay.
Kaya the drones are dependent on signals eh.
Yeah.
So kung wala naka-signal jam ka, there's very difficult to control a pilot a drone.
Okay, all right. Let's continue with our countdown.
On our top 8, the Light Rail Manila Corporation has filed a petition with the Department of Transportation seeking a fare increase for LRT-1. The proposed adjustments include an additional 4 pesos and 86 centavos for the boarding fee and 44 centavos per kilometer. This would raise the end-to-end fare from 45 pesos to 60 pesos. LRMC said its contract with the government mandates a 10.25% fare increase every 2 years. However, unimplemented increases have reportedly caused losses of over 2 billion pesos, and this could climb to 7 billion pesos if the hike is denied. LRMC President and CEO Enrico Benipayo emphasized the need for additional revenue to continue the Cavite Extension Project.
If the food fare is adjusted, the national government will avoid paying for the fare deficit. And of course, magagamit po yung perang yan for other and more important projects for the government.
Meanwhile, various groups have expressed strong opposition to this proposal. The DOTR, for its part, is reviewing the petition and will issue a decision within 30 days. If approved, the fare hike could take effect by March or April.
Sobrang bigat nito para sa amin. Imagine niyo yung pinakamaraming mga manggagawa ay minimum wage earner.
Marami tayong factors na kino-consider other than the actual petition of LRMC. We will also consider the position papers of the different NGOs and organizations that gave a manifestation. We also consider yung affordability, inflation, yung price indices.
Oo, kasi yan talaga yung sinasabi nga ngayon, lalo pa ngayon, di ba, we had recently lumabas yung survey, yung mga newly self-rated poor. Of course, sinasabi nga nila na talagang napakahirap ng buhay ngayon. Kaya iniisip nila parang makatarungan ba itong fare hike na to sa LRT1.
Ang tanong kasi nila ng marami is kasabay ito ng SSS increases, among others. Pero kasi this fare hike was really as agreed upon with the government, yung 10.25% increase na hindi naman na-increase for the past few years.
Exactly.
And it's about time na to do that. Kasi kung hindi, maintenance is gonna be an issue. Magiging problema ang pag-maintain. Isipin mo how many passengers per day ang gumagamit ng LRT?
Yes.
1, di ba? Madami-dami yan eh. So,
sinasabi nga nung sa Kilusang Mayo 1, sabi niya kung i-increasean ito ng 10 pesos per trip,
10
challenging
pesos ba or 10%?
10 pesos per trip would be challenging for low-income workers to shoulder. So this would jack up their transport cost by 20 a day. So ano mo yun, computein mo yun for a month. Let's say a month na pumapasok yung isang minimum wage earner. So sabi niya, it could mean shelling out 520 pesos for a working clock in 26 days.
Parang nakalagay sa screen is 4 peso increase.
Per ano yun per kilometer, per ano yan.
Oh.
So anyway.
For end-to-end kasi, magiging 10 pesos one way.
Pero kausapin natin, mamaya, natin ang taga-LRT1. Baka kasi mas ma-explain nila sa atin.
Yung rational behind.
Yan, yung rational behind of this
thought process and why it is
increase.
important to increase. Ayan, sa screen, sana ma-flash natin ulit na mas matagal para makita. But ang mangyayari kasi dito, yung LRT Cavite Extension Project, most of the funding kasi nakasalalay din sa income ng LRT1,
exactly.
LRMC, di ba? So anyway, let's discuss this.
To further discuss this, we have LRMC Communications Head Jackie Gorospe joining us today. Good morning and thanks for joining us today, ma'am.
Yes, good morning po. Thank you for the opportunity to share the details of our news on LRT1.
Yes, this is Angelo and Angela po, no. So we would just like to know po ano po ba yung pinaka-reason behind, ano po yung dahilan, bakit po kayo nagkaroon ng desisyon na magsumite nga po ng petisyon para sa pagtaas ng pamasahe natin sa LRT1.
Yes, so yesterday we had our public hearing, for the fare application, fare adjustment application for 2024. So, bahagi po ito ng aming agreement with the government when took over the LRT1 system in 2015. So, ito po ay part ng the support that we need to continually improve, to continually offer better services for LRT1.
Yes, but I understand that last few years daw, hindi daw nakapag-increase ang grupo niyo. Bakit po ganun? Why did you differ?
Sir. Yeah, so part of the agreement po is we are allowed to submit every 2 years a proposal. There is a formula and allowed percentage. So every 2 years po we're allowed to submit, but our requests through the years have been unacted upon. So na-approve lang po noong 2023, first time po. So magta 10 years na po yung concession namin this year. And we've only received one fare adjustment, and that was in 2023. So it was implemented last year, and yun po, now yung sinabit namin last year, it's part of the every 2 years. Yun nga po, yung naging hearing yesterday is to discuss yung proposal namin for 2024.
Yes, Jackie, I understand that this request that you have right now is also very critical to the Cavite Extension Project. What happens if the amount you requested, that you are requesting, is not granted, but rather they give you a lower amount? How critical is this to the project?
No, so through the years po, we've been able to upgrade and rehabilitate the LRT1 system. And the Cavite Extension Phase 1, we successfully opened for commercial service last November 16, a few weeks ago, and it was well received by the public. So for us to continue with the rest of the project, the remaining phase, the remaining stations, we need the support of the government and also to make the operations and maintenance of LRT1 more sustainable. Kasi po, we understand, diba, rail is a capital-intensive sector, and through the years po, we've invested 45 billion already in rehabilitating the system, with the new trains, the station. So for us to continue doing that, we will need some support. And ito po, yung what we're seeing, the management is the fare deficit will continue to increase if the fare adjustment will not be given. So that it will be definitely a helpful aid for us to continually improve the services and the upgrading, plus the remaining stations of Cavite Extension.
But I'm sorry to be asking you this, kasi syempre yung ibang mga grupo po tulad po ng Kilusang Maya Uno, Bayan Muna, are are really against this proposal, itong fare hike na to. Pero what can you tell them? Ano po yung po pwede niyong masabi sa kanilang mensahe?
To appease them.
O to appease them and to let them know po yung magandang hangarin itong pagtaas ng fare natin sa LRT. Kasi sinasabi po nila, heartless daw po and unconscionable as self-rated poverty hit a 21-year high.
We understand po the fare increases, fare adjustments are a sensitive issue, and we do not take this topic lightly. That's why we go through the proper process, nagkaroon kami ng consultation, and yung adjustment po is necessary for us to continue ensuring the sustainable operation, safety, and modernization of LRT1 system. So kami po, we've done so much through the years. We will need this support already, kasi po there are more stations to be built and then continuing upgrade. So we need to make sure na continuous yung aming improvement of services. So we remain committed to our mission in making LRT1 riding experience comfortable, efficient, and sabi nga po nila, it takes two to tango, diba? We cannot just do the work alone. So we need the support po. But rest assured, any adjustment or increment po, we are determined to put more value, to every peso or every centavo that they will spend for their LRT1 ride.
Yeah, and moving forward, Jackie, para siguro ma-excite na rin yung ibang riding public at ma-appease yung medyo pangamba nila about the increase, what can we look forward to with regards to updates sa LRT1?
So right now po, we opened the new station, so I would say in the first few weeks, nasa soft, partial, nasa, kumbaga, parang soft opening, a lot more in terms of full operations, like right now for Dr. Santos, we're working on the intermodal facility and then better connections to and from the new stations. We're working with transport partners, kumbaga, para for the first and last mile access to these stations. So that's why we continuous full operations of the new station kasi wala pa rin itong mga merchants and kiosks and establishments. So they can expect those in the coming months and even years. Number two, continuous deployment of our new generation 4 train sets. Kasi po, part of the concession, 30 new train sets. So ngayon po, 23 tinatakbo sa linya. So we will have to deploy 7 more on the line.
Okay.
So yun po, top of mind yung mga key developments that we expect in the next few months.
Okay. So lastly na lang po siguro, Miss Jackie, kasi sabi nila DOTR, there's a possibility na ang DOTR ay i-reject itong proposal na to. So what happens now? Technically speaking, ano yung magiging proseso?
We will continue with the process. We'll continue to work with our government partners. As in the past years, every 2 years we still comply. Kami po kasi with this, when we took over the LRT1 system, we honor our agreement with the government, with our concession, our KPI. So, yun po, patuloy rin po yung work, patuloy pa rin po yung collaboration with the government. So, we look forward to a supportive outcome for this location.
All right, on that note, maraming salamat, Jago.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. That was LRMC Communications Head Jackie Gorospe. Thank you so much.
Thank you and good morning.
Good morning.
Mahirap kasi talaga para sa mga commuter natin itong mga pagtaas.
But we also have to in society kasi there's a balancing act that needs to be done, and if you want the service, one of the best and cheapest transportation services is the LRT, MRT. And if you want the service, then you have to have the proper maintenance. Kasi there was a time, remember, yung MRT lines, laging nasisira. So sa LRT1, gusto nyo namang iwasan yan, they need the money coming in.
Yeah. All right, coming up. At least 5 people are reported dead due to the raging wildfire in Los Angeles, California.
And COMELEC allows the continued distribution of ayuda pero may mga kondisyon.
We are just getting started, mga kapatid. More of our top 10 news when brunch returns. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching Brunch here on One News.
Kaloko ko na.
Oo nga.
Hoy,
Good
welcome
morning
back
ka.
to Brunch. It's a Buddha's Belly Friday. Of
Yeah.
course, thank you Buddha's Belly and Marjorie Tan for sending over egg fried rice, chop suey, buchi, and yung
Buddha's
beef
feast.
stew or yung ano tawag dito? Yung
Chop suey, ano ba?
Hindi.
Egg rice, egg fried rice, buchi,
beef curry, beef rendang. Basta masarap siya. Oo, na-try natin. And of course, Friday ngayon, daming pinag-uusapan, daming nangyari this week, yung traslasyon, di ba?
Of course, yung wildfires sa ano, mamaya pag-usapan natin yan.
Yun, no?
Pero batiin ko muna itong ating mga usual suspects dito sa YouTube. We have Ronald Maxtay, si Oscar, si Summer Cabrera, si Tita Daisy, Tito Naldi, and Kuya Jopet na nanonood all the way from Antipolo. Si Arto 323, nanonood naman daw siya from SSS Village, Marikina City.
City.
Oo. Tapos, si Mina Benales, of course.
Oh, nag-message siya, si Mina.
Oo, si Tita Esther Abaya. We have Maria Barameda. Nanonood naman siya from Dait. Oh, 'di ba? Long live daw ano. I love brunch, long live. Christian Cabalquinto, good morning. Mer Abad, si Barbie, Bart Bartolome, nanonood din siya. Si Ralph Domingo, kagigising lang daw niya. Napasarap daw yung kanyang 12 hours of sleep. Si Mark
Kasi
Santiago,
may lagnat yan si Ralph.
Olympia Lesigues, and of course yung Reyes family.
Alright.
Si Tasha, nanonood din sa atin.
Good morning.
Okay. Si VJ, don't forget. Alright, let's continue with our countdown. Settling in at our 7th spot, wildfires are still raging in Los Angeles, California, with 5 fatalities confirmed. More than 1,000 structures have been damaged, forcing over 100,000 residents to evacuate. At least 6 separate wildfires are currently ongoing across Los Angeles County. In an interview with The Big Story, Emmanuel Munda, a Filipino residing in California, shared that while the community is filled with fear and sorrow, the alert system in place is helping keep residents informed and safe.
It's definitely been tough. You know, we could be angry, we could be sad, we could be terrified. Right now, I think most of our mentality is just coping with the loss from yesterday. A lot of my friends lost their homes. Praying that doesn't happen to us. What's great about LA is we do have a very strong infrastructure in alerting and alarming. We have a reverse 911 that would buzz and really make loud noises on our phones to tell us to get out or to tell us, what stage we're in.
Yes,
Grabe.
talagang tinamaan dito yung mga Palisades area, Altadena, those areas. Talagang all the conditions possible to make this a very difficult calamity to control happened. Like wind speeds of above 94 to 100 kilometers per hour. Tapos at the same time, California is known for its not necessarily too hot, not necessarily too cold, pero dry conditions sa sahig
So,
niya.
contributed ba talaga yung
So, whatever
lawak ng
the
apoy?
source is, whatever they find out later on, that ignited it. Kasi nakita there were some residents who posted na nakita yung fire nag-start na hindi pa ganun kalaki. There was a guy na sa backyard lang yan nangyari yung starting fire. Tapos ang bilis ng kalat because the wind just kept on pushing it.
Oo. We've seen a lot of yung mga properties ng mga kilalang Hollywood stars talagang leveled. Yun yung naging term nila na talagang down to the ground yung kanilang mga pinaghirapan ng mga mansions dyan. And of course, yung mga animals as well were deeply affected by those fire. Kaya kawawa din.
Kaya nga, after this, I've heard the statements of several lawmakers from both sides, no? From both Republican and Democrats. They agreed naman that since alam nila California is very prone to these conditions, maybe moving forward, they have a new protocol in place para maiwasan ito. Like, there was a question from a lawmaker, how come we cannot implement what other countries are doing with the same conditions as California? Ibang countries kasi, like Australia is victim to that. But they have a way of controlling it. They don't leave their kunyari, ilang araw na daw walang ulan, ginagawa ng Australia, they have a way of irrigating several areas ng forest nila para maging damp.
Oo,
If magkaroon
medyo
man lang
konting
ng
moist,
fire,
oo.
it's a little bit easier to control.
Oo, hindi mabilis yung pagkalat.
So bakit daw ang area nitong surrounding this Palisades, Altadena area, bakit napaka-dry daw? You'll see dry leaves, dry everything.
Yeah.
Not a sign of dampness. So therefore, you're creating a perfect, what they call the perfect condition for a bad wildfire. And it's not only surrounding areas yung nasira. You see fast food chains na sunog, physical structures burning
Even
to the
the
ground.
church.
And yung wind daw, the wind was very hot.
Oo.
Nakikita mo yung wind, di ba?
Really contributed dun sa spread ng
Parang
wildfire,
apocalyptic na yung wind. Pag umaano yung wind, dala niya yung mga ember, dala niya yung red, ano?
Yes.
So,
yung mga
makikita
parang
mo.
upos.
Oh, so parang
Tapos,
pelikula.
pupunta yun sa kabila na walang apoy, din mag-i-ignite ulit.
Mag-i-ignite
yun,
ulit.
Yun na nangyari. At ang bilis talaga ng mga pangyayari. We have, yung dating, dating artista dito, Claudio Coronel, na siya yung nagdala mismo, kasi caregiver siya.
Yeah.
Siya nagdala mismo nung kanyang patient out of the house, kasi nga dahil ang tawag dito, kumakalat na yung fire. So, yung iba mga na-interview doon, even just daw yung alagang hayop lang nila, nadala nila, the rest talagang naiwan na.
Si Harrison Ford, may video na lumabas na he was inside a police cruiser, a police, he had to be evacuated na parang yung police na mismo kailangan
kunin
siya. Tapos, when they were taking a video of him, nakaupo siya sa front seat ng police vehicle. Nakabukas kasi yung door, parang may nakatulala siya, tapos may inaano siyang bote na pinaglalaroan na parang hindi alam.
Nagdideliryo na siya.
Parang nagdideliryo na. Siyempre,
shock na siya
he's lived there all his life. You have Tom Hanks also. You have
these are big properties, mansion na
si Jamie Lee Curtis.
Milyones yung pinag-uusapan mo, tas 'di ba, in a second wala na.
And then yung mga these are millionaires, but you also have the people who are in regular folk na sinabi niya. There was this guy who was interviewed, dito ako naawa. He lost his entire family sa COVID-19 pandemic, and now his house was about, sabi niya, it's about 30 minutes from being burned down.
Wow.
Sabi niya, so where are you going if you're going to leave? Actually, since all my family is dead, I don't know where to go. Maybe stay in the car with my cats. Sabi niya.
So, meron ako nakitang post ni Jokoy. Si Jokoy,
Jokoy is from that area.
Sinasabi niya, parang nag-advertise siya sa social media niya, yung parang pinapapunta niya yung ibang mga affected na walang mapupuntahan. Meron silang Airbnb. No, meron siyang property na pwede niyang papuntahin din yung ibang mga affected na residents.
Yeah.
Alright, let's continue with our countdown.
On our sixth spot, Senator Win Gatchalian flags the decrease in the government's tobacco excise tax collection due to smuggling. Gatchalian said there were excise tax leakages due to the illicit trade of cigarette and misdeclaration of vape products. It is expected to balloon from 13.9 billion pesos in 2019 to 65.9 billion pesos in 2028. The Customs Bureau said they were able to seize over 9 billion pesos worth of smuggled vape and tobacco products last year.
And then just for 2024, last year, the raids increased almost fivefold. Yes, Your Honor. Is this an indication that illicit trade is flourishing for both vapor products and also cigarette products?
Based on observation, Your Honor, yes, Your Honor.
So they're becoming more brazen, in other words.
Based on our observations, Your Honor, they even use online platforms before, Your Honor, during these years.
Kita mo yan. So, wala naman, hindi naman mahirap ang Pilipinas. Dami-daming pera.
No?
It's just a matter of paano mo kukolektahin yan from ito. Kasi dahil sa illegal activities, yan ang laking amount na nawala.
Illicit trade ang term nila
smuggling.
dyan.
Illegal trade. Talagang daming nawawalang pera it's been a long problem.
Pero sinasabi din daw nila kasi may mga iba daw kasi mas
customs and tax declarations.
Marami na daw nag-switch sa vape. Kaya daw may konti ring discrepancy.
Hindi, but it's okay lang naman mag-switch, pero if it goes through the process, when you, kunyari, import, ang problema dito kasi hindi nakasmuggle. So, syempre, when you smuggle it,
Wala kang makakukuhang tax.
Wala kang makukuhang tax yan. Laki-laki ng nawala. Nakita mo ang computation nila.
Tapos yung
nakakahirapan tayo magkaroon ng budget for education and DPWH.
Then you have millions of
and zero subsidy mo sa PhilHealth, pero may laki-laki lang palang pera nawawala
Tapos
dito.
Tapos yun nga, smuggling yung problema. Wala pa rin na napaparusahan ng mga big-time smugglers, di ba? Isa rin
We're trying. I mean, administration after administration in the Philippines, government after government, we've been trying to curb smuggling, but medyo mahirap na issue tong at mahaba-haba ito.
Alright, let's continue with our countdown. Now, ranking fifth, President Bongbong Marcos is set to hold a trilateral phone call with the leaders of the United States and Japan this weekend. Meanwhile, the Department of Transportation has reported its accomplishments in 2024. Mobile journalist Julie Baiza has the details.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. would have a trilateral phone call with the United States and Japan this weekend. Presidential Communications Office Acting Secretary Cesar Chavez said the trilateral phone call would take place on Sunday, January 12. The call will be among Marcos, U.S. President Joe Biden, and Japan Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. The agenda of the phone call has not been disclosed yet. In April last year, Marcos conducted a trilateral meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden and Japan Prime Minister Kishida. Marcos described the meeting as a continuing evolution of relationship between the three countries. Meanwhile, the Department of Transportation reported its accomplishment for the year 2024. DOTR Secretary Jaime Bautista highlighted the privatization of the Ninoy Aquino International Airport or NAIA.
Alam niyo po, itong privatization, hindi lang mag-i-improve yung experience ng ating mga pasahero dahil magkakaroon ng mas comfortable, convenience, and but at the same time po, malaki yung kikitain ng gobyerno natin dito, no? Dahil doon sa ginawa nating privatization, no? Kikita po ang gobyerno ng almost 900 billion pesos for the next 25 years, no?
DOTR also aims to improve the image of the country's main airport. To recall, Ninoy Aquino International Airport has also been labeled the world's worst airport.
Dapat mawala na tayo doon sa list ng worst airport in the world, no? In fact, maging yung aircon natin sa Terminal 3 na dating talagang very problematic, ngayon ay malamig na, no? Yung ating mga baggage system working properly, no?
Aside from this, Bautista also boasted about the Batangas Port Passenger Terminal, which aims to decongest the port in Manila, and the LRT-1 Cavite Extension Project.
Itong LRT-1 extension was able to increase the capacity of the existing LRT Line 1 by 80,000 passengers per day, no? Biro mo, 80,000 yung additional na passengers na magbibiyahe from Baclaran to Sucat, no?
The DOTR earlier assured the public that the implementation of the government's flagship projects to boost the country's transportation sector is still on time and on track. Mobile journalist Julie Baiza, We're One News.
All right, let's move on to the next. Coming in at the top 4, the Manila Police has filed illegal assembly charges over the Bonifacio Day protest in 2024. Facing the charges are 13 activists. Among them are legislators and senatorial candidates. These include Congresswomen Franz Castro and Arlene Brosas. Police said they held a demonstration without documentary requirements from the Bureau of Permits. Their party, Makabayan, has maintained that the right to peaceful assembly should be upheld at all times.
All right, let's continue with our countdown. Switching gears now for our top 3, TV host and actor Vic Soto filed a lawsuit against director Daryl Yap over the trailer of the film The Rapist of Pepsi Paloma. A total of 19 counts of violation of the Cybercrime Prevention Act of 2022 were filed against Yap. The complaint also seeks 35 million pesos in moral and exemplary damages.
Meron akong pinipersonal. But I'm just against irresponsible people, lalo na sa social media. Kaya nga ako, hindi ako sumasagot in any social media o sa television o sa ano. I think this is the right venue.
Soto's legal counsel also confirmed that the court ordered the temporary halt of all promotional postings related to the film pending the resolution of the petition. In response, Yap has maintained that anyone has the right to file a case.
Ititigil po muna lahat ng mga postings, etc. In the meantime, pinapasagot siya dun sa aming reklamo. Malaya tayo magpahayag, malaya tayong gumawa ng pelikula. Ang exemption lang, huwag kang gagawa ng libelous.
Okay, so
writ of habeas data. So
writ of habeas
you will be held liable for sharing, promoting any post that come from Director Daryl Yap.
So lahat daw, kasi kaya daw 19 counts kasi 19 daw specifically chinek nila yung mga posting. May mga nag-reshare, nag-repost.
Huwag na kayo reminder sa mga public. Even an innocent resharing baka maybe detrimental to you. Hindi naman daw automatic, sabi ni Attorney Buko, ang pagdidemanda because may mga times na innocently lang nag-share. So they will determine that pag nangyari yon. But
and yesterday, I asked yung mobile journal natin na nandoon, si Denise Valdesancho, diba? Kung may balak din ba si Vic Soto mag-file ng cases against those actors na involved. So sabi niya, naman daw niya, walang personalan na lang. Siguro for them, trabaho lang. Ang talagang gusto lang niya is mapanagot yung creator.
Yung issues naman like this, usually you cannot fault the people involved in the project because hindi naman sila ang creative masterminds ang term doon. Hindi sila ang may creative control doon. But madami pa tayong pag-uusapan. For the meantime, don't go away. We're not done yet. May dalawa pa tayo. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching Brunch here on the One News. Happy Friday, all brunchies.
Okay, let's continue with our countdown.
On our second spot, 4 in 10 Filipinos are supportive of impeaching Vice President Sara Duterte. That's according to the latest survey by the Social Weather Stations, or SWS. Out of 2,160 respondents, 41% expressed support for the impeachment, while 35% were opposed. The remaining 19% are either undecided or, quote, don't know much about the issue. So far, 3 impeachment complaints have been filed against Duterte. In an interview with The Big Story, ACT Teachers Party List Representative Franz Castro said that delays in addressing impeachment complaints could undermine the integrity of the House of Representatives.
High time that the Congress should act on the impeachment complaints as soon as possible, now that more Filipinos are thinking or are supporting the impeachment complaints. Kasi kung hindi mangyayari ito, hindi ma-actionan agad ito, no? Mawawala yung tiwala ng mamamayan sa Congress.
On our top story, it's all about COMELEC. The poll body exempts welfare programs from election ban under certain conditions. Here's a report.
The COMELEC has placed 38 areas under the highest classification for areas of concern. This comes months before the midterm elections this year. Most of these areas on the red category are in the Bangsamoro region. The poll body classifies them as zones of grave concern due to the presence of serious armed threats and a documented history of election violence. The COMELEC uses a 4-tier classification system for areas of concern. Others are green for peaceful areas, yellow for areas with past election incidents, and orange for areas with immediate armed threats. Meanwhile, the poll body has allowed the government to continue implementing welfare programs. These include the controversial Ayuda sa Kaposang Kita program, or AKAP, but only if no candidate for the 2025 elections is present in the payout.
Absolutely no politicians/candidates during the distribution of any ayuda of whatever form or name. They will have to submit to us, the DSWD, yung pinapangako nila na guidelines daw na stricto.
The poll body warns candidates who will be found in violation of the policy.
May dinisqualify kami mga governors at mga mayors dahil nga sa maling paggamit ng pondo ng bayan. Ang tawag natin dyan, abuse of state resources. At dahil dyan, siguro nag-create din ng konting chilling effect yung ginagawa natin.
Government agencies and officials implementing the programs may also be held liable.
Siyempre po ang akala ng iba, disqualification sa kandidato o kaya election offense lang sa kandidato. Pero doon po sa mismong responsible sa pagpapatupad po nito, lalo yung executive department na ahensya, siyempre po yan ay isang election offense at the same time, administrative case. Laban po sa kanila.
For News 5, Mon Gualvez, we are One News.
Let's talk more about that development.
COMELEC spokesperson Rex Laujanco is now on the line joining us. Good morning once again, Spokes.
Magandang umaga po, Sir Angelo, Ma'am Angela, at sa lahat po ng taga-subaybay ng brand. Good morning po.
Okay, Spokes, we saw the interview of the Chairman Garcia na the mere presence of the candidates during the give out of the distribution of ayuda is an offense already, an election offense. Could you describe to us what do you exactly mean by presence? Is this physical or kasama po yung mga tarpaulin nila?
Po, in whatever form and nature po ito, no? So hindi lang yung physical presence nila, kundi yung mararamdaman sila. Kahit nga po sabi ni Chairman Garcia, kahit yung mga staff, they should not be there. Why? In the first place po, yung distribution po ng ayuda, they are not involved in this. Ang namimigay po niyan yung ating mga social workers or health workers in the case of the Department of Health pagdating sa MAIF. At doon naman po sa DOLE yung ating mga labor officers po. So wala po absolutely kinalaman at dahil dyan, dapat po ay hindi sila present in whatever form or nature. May dinagdag pa po dyan na condition na kailangan po yung guidelines must be strictly adhered to.
Yes.
So kung yung pinromulgate po ng bawat ahensya na guidelines must be complied with by these departments who sought the exemptions.
And sorry, I want to add to that. No, Spokes, I understand that if ever may nangyari daw any presence in terms of na ma-mention o may tarpaulin or nandun sila, yung social workers or DSWD officers na nandun may stand to lose their licenses. Is that accurate, Spokes?
Hindi naman po agad ganon. Malaki po ang tiwala natin sa ating mga health workers, sa social workers at labor officers dahil sila po ginagawa lang nila yung trabaho nila. At sinasabi nga po ni Chairman Garcia, hindi sila papayag na mawalan sila ng lisensya dahil sa kagagawa ng ilang politiko.
Yeah.
Kaya nga po ang kabilin-bilinan namin, dalawang bagay. Sa ahensya, siguraduhin na talagang distribution lang ito. Walang politics in it. It should not influence in any way the elections. Second, on the part of the candidate, pagka ipinilit nyo yan at nireport sa amin at kinumplain kayo, dalawang bagay yan. It may result to your disqualification and we may file election offense cases against you. Tinitignan na rin po namin na kung halimbawa makikisabay pa sila ng ilang bagay na magbibigay sila na kumbaga under the guise of tumutulong, pwede po namin din silang habulin bilang vote buying. So marami pong pamamaraan ng COMELEC.
Spokes, no, siguro I want to go back lang dun sa naging rational, the reason behind bakit po kayo, ang COMELEC body po ay nag-exempt po ng mga welfare programs when in fact, for as long as I can remember, kapag po 45 days before the regular election, prohibited po, di ba po, yung mga pagdi-disburse or yung expenditure ng mga public funds.
Opo, makikita nyo naman po yan sa Omnibus Election Code. So hindi naman po absolutely prohibited. What is being stated there is that bawal po mag-disburse ang public funds to continue with public works and other social services unless may prior authorization sa Commission on Elections. So kung makikita nyo po, yung batas natin, hindi talaga siya intended para pigilan ng social services. Ano ang dahilan? Pinipigilan po ito para masiguro na hindi ma-abuse ang state resources, hindi mapuput forward yung intensyon ng mga politiko. Kaya nga po sabi ni Chairman Garcia, kahit kailan ang COMELEC po ay hindi magiging hadlang sa ating social services.
So isa-isahin lang po natin itong mga welfare programs na exempted po dito sa election spending ban.
Po, una po sa lahat, yung sa DOH, yung pong tinatawag nilang MAIFs. Sa DOLE naman po, marami-raming programa yan kasi may lalo na po pagdating sa mga labor-oriented social programs. number 1 na po yung tupad. Sa DSWD po, marami po yan dahil iba't ibang klase may menu of assistance sila at kasama na po doon yung AIX saka yung AKAP, yung first tranche po ng AKAP.
Okay.
Opo.
So, spokes, minsan kasi po ang sinasabi nila ang nagiging problema dito kahit na po meron tayong ongoing na o existing na guidelines pagdating sa pagdidistribute ng mga ayuda like this, yung pagpunta nga po ng mga kandidato doon, hindi mapigilan ng mga officers from DSWD kasi nahihiya sila, person of authority sila. So, paano po yun? Paano po mag-take part yung mga citizens din natin pagdating po sa pagsusumbong sa mga kandidato na baka po abusuhin itong pagkakataon na ito?
Mula pa po noong 2022, Ma'am Angela and Sir Angelo, binuksan na ng COMELEC po yung aming linya sa mga complaints. Kahit po anonymous complaints ay tinatanggap namin para ma-preserve yung identity. So kung may makikita po sila na nagpupumilit at nakakialam, alam ko po, ang DSWD, ang DOH at ang mismong ating pong DOLE, sila na mismo po magre-report. Malaking tulong din po kung yung ating mga kababayan mismo ay magsusumbong sa amin.
Spokes, I'd like to clarify some things. Paano po kung ang isang ayuda distribution event ay ginawa po sa isang private property that kinokondone or pinapayagan ng owner ng property ang politiko na to be part of the distribution?
Naku, hindi po mangyayari yan kasi may strict guidelines po ang mga naturang ahensya kung saan ipapamigay ito, saan i-distribute, ano ang proseso, sino ang bibigyan at higit sa lahat, sino ang may participation. Kaya nga po confident ang COMELEC na magbigay po ng ating exemption or authority dahil malinaw sa guidelines kung ano ang dapat maganap sa distribution.
Oo. Spokes, yung ano na lang po, ano po bang penalty natin doon sa number 1, doon sa maaaring mga officers ng DSWD na lalabag, papayagan yung mga kandidato na makisali sa distribution ng mga ayuda. And number 2, sa mga kandidato din na mismo lalabag ng kautusan na to?
Una po sa ahensya muna, maari pong i-revoke. Bagamat na-grant na to ay maaring i-revoke ng COMELEC ang naunang na-grant na authority. So anong impact nito? Hindi na nila pwedeng ituloy. At yung pagkaka-revoke na yan, pag sakaling itutuloy nila nang wala na authority, they are liable for election offense. So idamay na po natin. Pero kami po ay naniniwala hindi gagawin ng ating social workers. Pero kung sakali man po na merong ganyan, magiging liable po sila. Tandaan po natin, yung paglabag ng prohibition sa disbursement of public funds ay isang election offense. Criminal po ito. May pagkakakulong na 1 hanggang 6 na taon. Pagkakatanggal ng karapatang bumoto at perpetual disqualification to hold public office. Kapag na-impose nyo yan, tanggal po kayo sa gobyerno kahit kailan hindi na makakabalik sa gobyerno. Doon naman po sa politiko na makikialam, talagang ipipilit yung sarili nila. Una, ituturing po namin yung abuse of state resources. Ituturing po namin yan na electioneering. At kung sakaling nagsasabay pa sila ng pamimigay, ituturing po namin yan na vote buying. And in all these 3 cases, ito po ay magkakaroon ng 2 epekto. Una, criminal. Election offense din po yan. Pangalawa, administrative dahil i-disqualify po sila ng COMELEC.
Mabilis na lang po, Spokes, meron po ba kayong mga ide-deploy na mga officials from COMELEC to make sure na wala nga po mangyayaring ganito? Or trust system tayo sa DSWD na hindi nila gagawin ito?
Opo, ganito po, hindi po ganun karami ang tao ng COMELEC. Mahigit 5,000 lang po kami sa buong bansa. So yung everyday presence po sa mamimigay ay maaring hindi namin magampanan. Pero ang sinasabi nga po natin, ang mga kababayan natin mismo, ang mga social workers mismo, pwedeng dumulog yan sa COMELEC. At napatunayan po natin yan na talagang nagsusumbong sila sa COMELEC dahil tiwala sila na impormasyon ay magagamit at mapapanatili po natin ang confidentiality ng identity nila.
Alright, on that note, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras muli, COMELEC spokesperson, Attorney Rex Laujanco.
Maraming salamat po.
I'd like to add to that. Sabi ni COMELEC Chairman Garcia, you could report it to COMELEC by sending pictures. Meron silang provided sa website nila where they can send pictures or evidence that proves
may mga paglabag.
May mga paglabag.
Oo.
Alright.
Huwag kayong matakot. Magsumbong kayo pag may mga pa-epal na ano. Ay. Nagalit na Friday. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Budas Belly.
Happy Friday po.
Budas Billy. Budas Belly. And that Marjorie Tan, hello, good morning. And that wraps up today's episode of Brunch.
Join us again on Monday. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro. And he is Angelo Castro III. We're One News. All sides, all the time.